We have a restrictive economic system in this country by design. That is not the way it needs to be, nor is it the way that it should be. And I think the most important thing, Steve, to really jump into is for people to really understand how the federal deficit really is a myth. When you're a currency issuer, as I believe one of a dozen or so countries around the globe have, we can print money as we need to, and our main concern is keeping up with inflation. So if you can dive right into that in terms of
how we've been being lied to for basically our entire lives.
Not paying attention to that big billboard.
No, just basically that we've been being lied to forever.
I've seen the billboard in New York City where they run the deficit numbers and tell us how terrible we are.
Yeah. So talk about that. Like basically it's a snow job that we've been all living with since the end of the gold standard.
Yes.
Yeah. It's definitely something like that. The bottom line is that anybody can create a currency. Literally, you and I can create a currency. The issue is, can you get it accepted? And in the case of the United States and the UK and Russia and China and Japan and Australia and Canada and really all over the world, any nation that issues its own currency can do this. It's not an American phenomenon. And MMT isn't something you really do either. That's the thing. MMT is a lens for which you can view the entire economy. And so when you look at the way people have laid out the economic battle, you see in particular progressives, well-meaning progressives, typically are asking, how are you going to pay for it? How are you going to, fund this thing? Where's the money coming from? You're taking from Peter to pay Paul, and the mounting deficits, and it's a moral crisis and so forth. And so for years, I was a Republican, to be honest with you. I was right of Reagan, and all I could think of was, people are ne'er-do-goods. They're not, they're always taking my tax dollars and all the things that you see people talk about constantly. So when the great financial crisis hit back in 2008 and 2009, I lost a 17-year career, and I was like, something's amiss. And I started getting introduced a little bit at a time, spoon-fed, before all the videos and memes and stuff like that. And when I finally realized that basically a country that creates its own currency can spend, period. The issue is not a matter of ever can you afford it. The issue is always, can you resource it? In other words, do you have the real resources to provide Medicare for all? Do you have the real resources to provide student debt relief? Do you have the real resources to provide for a military that has filled the whole globe up full of bombs and tanks and planes and stuff like that? And of course we do. So the issue becomes, why is it always when we come down to talking about progressive change, when we're talking about taking care of people, that we're always hearing about, well, how are you going to pay for it?
Yeah.
And you go back to Hillary, and you can remember her cackling at Bernie the first go round. It's pie in the sky. It's pie in the sky. And so these are the sorts of things that people get reinforced in their head. And so what MMT is, going back to 1972, when Nixon took us off the Bretton Woods Accord, took us out of the gold standard, really.
Yeah.
What we had was a fundamental shift from a gold-backed, commodity-driven, force-redeemable world global gold standard based on the dollar. And when he removed us from that, something happened. The people that had money, the powers that be, the oligarchs, they knew what was going on. And if you look at the income levels, you can see it's like a hockey stick. It just ballooned straight up after Reagan and through Clinton and Obama, you name it. So MMT allows us to see the economy as it is, not as people say it is. And you see the libertarians and you see the other folks out there that believe that we are constrained, that we don't have the money, that we can't do these things. And MMT shows us clearly that not only can we spend on anything that we have resources for, that we can do it as long as we have the votes, as long as we have the political power to make that happen. There's absolutely no financial constraint. There is no such thing as how you're going to pay for it, because every time the federal government spends, it literally spends with keystrokes. It literally wills that money into existence. So the idea of raising taxes to pay for things is anathema. It's not real. It doesn't have any basis in fact. So I think that's really a big thing right there to start with.
I don't know if this question has been asked or not, but it's just been kind of, itching me lately. Is there any point to federal income tax?
Yes, actually there is. So the reason for having a tax in general, you have to go way back to the beginning when kings were issuing sovereign currency, and they would have gold coins with the Caesar's face on it, render under Caesar and stuff like that. And the idea here is that the king wanted to create an aqueduct. They wanted to create a standing army. They wanted to create a road. They wanted to build something, right? A museum, whatever. And so what they would do is they would say, hey, you know, I want to hire somebody for this gold coin. And the people would say, what do I need a gold coin for? I'm fine. I'm out here hunting in the woods. I'm, you know, raising potatoes. I'm having fun with my family. And it's like, you got a good point there. So how about this? How about I charge you 10 of these gold coins with my face on it to keep your house? The guy's like, oh crap, how do I get those gold coins? He's like, funny you should ask that. Let me show you. I want to build an aqueduct over here and I'll give you so many of these gold coins. And so the tax is what drives the need for currency. And it's kind of the circuit that keeps our economy going. It doesn't pay for anything. So the tax either can raise the buying power of the dollar or it can diminish. It depends on aggregate demand. And you can see that in terms of inflation. You raised the point of inflation at the beginning of this thing. And that's really the real constraint. How much inflation do you want to have in the economy? And so taxes serve as a brake or a gas pedal for the economy that drives the currency. We're in a tax-driven economy.
Right, but it doesn't go to our programs and how you don't have to balance it like that. You don't have to have it like that. That's a mythology.
That's correct. In fact, you know, on Twitter, you and I went back and forth for a second, and I just was I put a great article out there by Raul Carrillo and Jesse Meyerson called "The Dangerous Myth of the Taxpayer Dollar." And what it is all about really is what do you think of a taxpayer, right? What do you think about? You typically think of a white dude. You think about a dude with a suit, the good people, the mom, pa, apple pie, make America great again, all that good stuff, right? And what happens is that people don't understand the difference between states and the federal government. You know, the state of Florida, for example, has to have tax, maybe not income taxes, but they have different taxes to fund the state-based programs. Just like if California wanted to have California healthcare, they would have to fund that literally with taxpayer dollars. But at the federal level, we don't have to pay taxpayer dollars for it. In fact, if you were to do Medicare for all for the whole nation, there's a lot of reason to believe that it would actually be deflationary, because anytime you have economic activity that is brought back into a more efficient state, you have less economic activity. So the chances of those real resources being freed up, it could really create a deflationary condition. So, you know, it's just a matter of trying to understand the difference between states, which have to tax, and the federal government taxes, but for a totally different reason.
Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.